What's going on, everybody? It's that time again. It's the Sooners Illustrated podcast, episode 58 on this Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Josh Callaway, James D. Jackson, Tom Green with you on a Tuesday. We bumped the show back a day again, and again, it kind of paid off because there's some things we want to talk about that we wouldn't have been able to if we did the show yesterday. We'll get into all of it. Scouting Combine list just came out. Reaction to that a little bit. A little instant reaction came out just before we started recording. Basketball continues to play important games. Men got a big win. Women just keep on winning. Porter Moser leaving? Question mark? Maybe not. We'll talk about that. And a little baseball preview from me, really, more than anything, at the very end of the program as well. But gentlemen, we are about 5-ish. We don't know the exact start of spring camp. About 5-ish, 6-ish weeks, month and a half or so out from the start of spring camp. So I figured let's take each show in the early part of the week and let's kind of just do a little temperature check on each position group for Oklahoma. We'll do two each week, kind of like our position preview series. If you're with us back in the fall, we'll do it again during fall camp where we kind of break it down. We gave our confidence level. You guys remember that? Yeah. We'll kind of break each position down a little bit and just kind of where things are at now as it stands today in February. Obviously, this is before spring ball. This is before the post-spring transfer portal window. So like I said, it's just a temperature check, not a final estimation, but just as things stand today. So to start, let's do quarterbacks. We're going to do quarterbacks and running backs here today. Obviously, Jackson Arnold era begins. Dylan Gabriel's gone. He goes to Oregon. You bring in Michael Hawkins, Brendan Zurbrugg, the freshman who signed, and you add Casey Thompson out of the transfer portal to presumably be your backup. Davis Bevel also transfer portaled out. General Booty still hanging around. So, guys, my question, and I'll pose it to you this way every time we do this, better shape, about the same, or are you more concerned about the quarterback group? This is also Seth Luttrell's unit now, not Jeff Levy, so you have a change in leadership there. Tom, how are you feeling? Are you more confident in the signal caller spot than you were maybe this time last year, or going into the season last year, I should say? Or, you think how are you measured up right now?
So I don't think I'm more confident yet. Just because, as you guys know, going into last season, I think I was higher on Dylan Gabriel's potential and his ability more than the rest of us were, just because of his experience more than anything. Jackson Arnold obviously has all the ability in the world, an incredible arm. We saw that on display, at times during his freshman year. We saw it in the bowl game. But we also saw some things that he obviously needs to work on, and that's going to come as he gets more comfortable in Seth Luttrell's offense, as he just develops as a passer. A couple times he was holding on to the ball a little bit too long or something like that. So I think that there's a very high ceiling, obviously, in that quarterback room. I don't think there's any cause for concern in the quarterback room. I'm just not ready to say that they're in a better position yet in the quarterback room. But they're in a better position than they were, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Being able to bring in Casey Thompson in the transfer portal to add a veteran presence, a guy who, in a pinch, as long as he's healthy, if Jackson Arnold goes down or has to miss time for whatever reason, you would have no hesitation throwing Casey Thompson in there to start a game. You would have confidence in him to be able to do that. I mean, he's a seventh-year guy. When he's been healthy, he's been an effective quarterback. He's played in big games. So I like where this quarterback room is at right now. I feel much better about it than I would have, a month and a half, 2 months ago.
Yeah, I like what Tom says here. I'm slightly less, confident than what I was last year with Dylan Gabriel and Jackson Arnold back there. I mean, those guys they were basically 5-star. Jackson Arnold was a 5-star, but Dylan Gabriel, with his experience and everything that he had already brought, he had proven to be a 5-star guy at that point in time in terms of college football. So, his experience is what you talk about with Casey Thompson. Dylan Gabriel has that experience. He also had the playing time at that level as well, and then you have Jackson Arnold just behind him. It was a really, really good situation to be in. As we said, it was very high on our numbers and our rankings that we did before the season started. And so, I think OU is just a little bit less than that at this point in time because the guys are unproven at this point. Like the guys that you brought in, the guys that you have, behind them, we don't really know all that they can do at the college level just yet. And that's even with Jackson Arnold. I mean, he had just that one game really where he actually got to start and play a full-length game. I mean, he had his, touches here and there throughout the season, but, being the guy as the main guy, that's what I'm talking about here. So it's a little bit unproven. So I think it's a little bit less than, where we were at the time last year.
Yeah, I'm gonna say marginally more confident
Okay.
by a small gap. Obviously you lose. Well, I think what you lose in the experience and veteran presence that Dylan Gabriel had with Jackson, I think you make up for in just arm talent and just general skill, things like that. I mean, he's going to do throws that Dylan Gabriel just wouldn't attempt to do. Obviously, you guys know I was talking about all season how highly I think of Jackson Arnold. Casey Thompson added was a big deal. Like Tom said, with Michael Hawkins as a true freshman backup, that's not a place you want to be in. Obviously, that's the spot they were in last year with Jackson Arnold's backup. So I think even though I'm not saying Casey Thompson is a better quarterback necessarily than Jackson Arnold, I do think in terms of that role, the backup, throw him in the fire if you need to in the middle of a game like we saw in Provo, I think you probably feel better about Casey Thompson handling that moment than you would a true freshman, whether that's Michael Hawkins this year or even necessarily Jackson Arnold last year. I know he did fine. They won that game, but they weren't asking him to do a whole lot. They're just trying to hang on, there in Utah. So I think overall, Michael Hawkins probably your third string option. That's better by a lot than what you had last year. Not trying to just crush Davis Bevel, but we saw that. We saw enough there. And General Booty's still around, so that's a wash, I guess. And you also have Brandon Zerbrook. So I'm going to say marginally, I think it's in a better shape than it was last year, and I think Jackson Arnold's going to have a great year. I'm really excited to see him get to have full run of the go of it, and the fact that the schedule, like we've talked about before, has got a nice runway. He doesn't have to just jump right into playing Bama. He has a few games at home against G5 teams that he gets a chance to kind of settle in a little bit before the crazy environments and all that stuff comes a little later. So I'm excited to see what he looks like. I think by not a huge gap, I think they're in slightly a better place than they were last year.
I think that's a good point too. I don't think I kind of, put when we talked about this beforehand, I don't think I listed the entire quarterback group in there. Obviously third and fourth strings. Yeah, OU is a little bit better now too. That's a good point to bring up when you look at the entire group, because just first hearing the question, I'm like, okay, just the first and second string, the guys that you're mainly going to see on the field. Sure. That's who I was kind of ranking off of. So I like that, Josh. I like that.
Yeah, I think in terms of depth, top to bottom, they're in a better spot than they were last year, and last year they were in a better spot than they were the year before. That's something that's naturally going to come in time. Again, I think Jackson Arnold is going to be a great quarterback. I want to see how he develops in this offense and how he develops with Seth Luttrell. Just because Dylan Gabriel was a proven commodity going into last season, so I felt better about the top of their depth chart heading into last season than I necessarily do right now. But I think there's obviously room for Jackson Arnold to just, hit his ceiling and hit his stride and show why he was a top 10 player in the class.
Yeah.
For sure. And like we talked about at the time, that Alamo Bowl, obviously the turnovers, things like that, he's got to clean up. But the talent was on display, threw for over 300 yards. And that bomb to Brandon Thompson, that's what's keeping OU fans going right now. There's a lot to be excited about. What about the running backs? DeMarco Murray's group. Some turnover here, but some big names are obviously back. Javonte Barnes, Gavin Sawchuk going to lead his room, presumably. It's what we thought last year. Didn't end up going that way because Javonte Barnes was hurt basically the whole year. Just a lost season for him. You're hoping he can bounce back. Gavin Sawchuk was great in the second half of the year. Marcus Major, Tolly Walker, the other guys who got lots of carries, are both gone. Minnesota, Wisconsin, where they transferred out to. You bring in Sam Martin from – wait, is that Sam Franklin from UT? I was like, that does not sound right. Sam Franklin from UT Martin comes in from the transfer portal. You also add Taylor Tatum, number one running back in the class. Also Xavier Robinson comes in as well. Andy Bass, who's going to be injured, obviously, at least to start the year. What do we make of this running back group? I think a lot of it probably comes down to Javonte Barnes' health. How you size it up? Major Walker gone, but you bring in Franklin from the portal, like I said. How you kind of size up DeMarco Murray's group?
I think this room is in a better position than they were last year. Probably pretty significantly. And that's not to take anything away from Marcus Major or Tolly Walker, who, like we've discussed, was at times their most consistent running back last season.
Sure.
And look, I know a lot of fans would have liked for them to find a way to keep Tolly Walker around, get him on scholarship or something, just because he proved he can, consistently pick up that yardage that you need sometimes. But I also think that Gavin Sawchuk, when healthy, showed that he is more than capable of being a featured running back. At least he was in the Big 12. I think he'll be able to do it in the SEC. He finished the season, I think, with 5 straight 100-yard games. Coming into last season, you think about it, we barely saw Gavin Sawchuk in 2022. It was just that, kind of tantalizing preview in the Cheez-It Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And then, kind of hampered by that hamstring throughout the first half of the season. But once he hit his stride, man, he was full go. Nothing was really stopping him. You hope to get Javonte Barnes back healthy. You know what he can do when he's healthy as a number 2 back, a complementary piece. And then, adding Sam Franklin, we'll see how the transition goes from FCS to FBS, but he's a guy that has produced. He had almost 1,400 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns last season. He's got over 2,000 career rushing yards. If he can be kind of that third, second or third complementary piece in there, change of pace type of back maybe, this room's going to be in good position. And that's without even considering what, Taylor Tatum or Xavier Robinson might be able to do as freshmen. I'm not counting out Taylor Tatum, carving out a role as a freshman just because he was the top running back in the class. I mean, he has the ability to be a dude. It's just a matter of how soon can they get him on the field and in what capacity.
This running back room is a lot better. I mean, that's just the simple point of it. I mean, you talked about it, Tom, with Tatum coming in as well. Bringing a guy like that into this group with Gavin Sawchuk, which we all assume is going to lead the way this time. We don't really have any question marks this time going in. It's going to be Sawchuk. And then the Barnes is there as well. I mean, I've talked about it a lot with the Oklahoma Preps guys, with Andy Bass and Xavier Robinson. Those 2 guys were the top, players in the state of football this year. I mean, it was just that They were that good, and you bring them both in. Now, obviously, Andy Bass has had his injury in the state title game, so he'll be out here in a bit. Although I did see him, working out. He's back to working out now, trying to get that knee fully ready. So he's not all the way at this point in time being out. But I mean, bringing those guys in to this group that's already experienced with Sawchuk leading the way, I think is a very comfortable position for Oklahoma fans to be in, because you've seen what Sawchuk can do as a feature back now. I mean, those last 5 games, as Tom talked about, 100 yards plus each time. And then you got these, the 5-star coming in, and you got everybody behind them. It's a really, really good running back room. I mean, it's going to be a lot higher on our rankings this time around when we get there this season, if everybody's still here.
Yeah, I think that the stat is every time that Gavin Sawchuk has gotten at least 11 carries in a game, he's eclipsed 100 yards. So he makes the most of his opportunities. He does not play around.
Yeah, and that's why we just assume he should be the guy, because there's no way he does that and then they not let him be the lead back, the feature back next year. That's just what it is.
Yeah, presuming Javonte Barnes is himself, I think it's definitely in a better place. I mean, 2 years ago, Javonte Barnes was Eric Gray's number 2, and it was great. I came into last year thinking that he was going to take a big jump with Sawchuk as his number 2, and it just never happened. He never was able to get on the field with any real consistency at all. And now you hope that he can bounce back and be back to what he was a couple years ago. Gavin Sawchuk, like we just said, finished the year so strongly. We did the signing day superlative show, Colin and I, last Thursday. His pick for most day one ready was Taylor Tatum. So, I mean, you just look at the group overall, just even Barnes and Sawchuk alone at the top, you're in really good shape. And then you bring in Sam Franklin, he's going to have an impact. Tatum's right there, just one of those guys, number 1 running back in the class, for a reason. He'll be an option for you if you need him to. Xavier Robinson, who I've been, James and I both seen him play in person a number of times. Hard to imagine he won't find a way to do something at the college level. May not necessarily be right away next year because they just won't need him to, but I wouldn't shock me either. I mean, he's a different breed, different cat. So, yeah, there's a lot to like about this running back room. DeMarco Murray is recruited it well. They're in good shape here. A lot, depth is in a better spot. And, I agree. I think you're in a better place running back-wise than you were last year, which was not even a weakness last year. So, good stuff on that front. So, yeah, we'll do this every Monday/Tuesday. We're going to try and I promise we're going to get back to the normal Monday, Thursday, starting next week. Next week we'll do wide receivers and tight ends, which I think is going to be a couple more that we're going to say improved, especially tight ends. But we'll get into that next week. And then we'll keep doing the 2 positions at a time, and then take us right to the start of spring practice in the middle of March. We're getting close. I
think for what OU has done in this offseason so far, it hasn't been like loud additions, but when you put them all together, it's like, that the entire group is a lot better now. And I think you're seeing it a lot because Brent Venables talked a lot about competitive depth last year. I think this year they got just as they've done just as good. So I think we're going to see that a lot with our new rankings here pretty shortly.
Yeah, I've talked about it before. I mean, when you bring back a lot of your starters, especially on defense, it just makes sense. Your portal class isn't going to be ranked as highly because you're bringing a lot of your guys back. So I think you're right. They've supplemented the roster more than they brought in guys who are going to necessarily just completely fill a hole, because they didn't have as many holes this time as they've had the last couple of cycles, with Venables at the helm here. So we'll continue to evaluate things as we go along and look forward to start of spring practice, which is nearing about a month and a half, a little over a month or so from now. Do want to real quick, this wasn't necessarily planned, but it popped right before we started recording, so I wanted to just make sure we got it in. Scouting Combine invite list just came out. 3 of you guys, all offensive linemen: Andrew Rame, Walter Rouse, Tyler Guyton. No surprise there. Guyton's been great. He's basically a lock to win the first round. The 2 things that are obviously jump out here: 3 offensive linemen, maybe slow everybody's roll. I'm trying to chase Bill Beanbo out of town. He's about to put 3 more guys in the league. And then no Drake Stoops. Didn't get the invite. Didn't get the Senior Bowl invite either. But obviously, you guys remember he did really well at the Shrine Bowl that week of practices, but obviously not enough to get an invite to the Combine. Really stinks because it's a lot harder to get drafted when you don't get that Combine invite. Not impossible, but it's a lot harder when they don't get to see you in Indy. So that stinks for him. I don't know if you guys had anything you want to toss in there, but yeah, that stinks for him to not get that Combine invite, because that really it hinders you a lot in the draft process. It just does.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Shrine Bowl, he'll still be able to kind of hang his head on that, and he'll have his pro day. I mean, there'll be scouts at the pro day.
It puts the emphasis on the pro day is what it does.
It just puts a little bit more pressure on that one day, presumably in March. So we'll see what happens. Obviously not surprised to see the 3 guys that did get invited. Thought that maybe Drake Stoops would get an invite just because of kind of what he was showing down there in the Shrine Bowl. But yeah, we'll see how his prospects kind of work out. I still think he's a guy that even if he doesn't get drafted, he is going to probably earn an opportunity, a training camp invite somewhere to kind of show what he can do and see if he can cut his teeth in the league.
Yeah, I think if Drake Stoops just gets in the door, he'll be fine. That's, as we said, he's one of those guys. He's kind of like infectious the way he carries himself and things like that, and then be able to produce on the field the way he did at OU this last year. It's incredible. So as long as he gets in, I think he'll be okay.
I understand he's not the biggest guy. He's not real, fast, or he's not going to blow you away in the, those measurables. But like, what more do you want from the guy in terms of the season he had to try and get an invite? That's where it kind of stinks for him, because it's like he did just about everything you could hope. Second half of the year, he's one of the best receivers in the country. Period. Numbers wise, at least, and didn't get the invite there. So that stinks, but he'll persevere. Like you guys said, if he just gets a shot, he'll probably make the most of it. And it does, like Tom said, puts an emphasis on the pro day. Because when you have the Combine, you can go do your thing, and then you kind of know where you want to improve, or maybe even not do it all a second time at the pro day. Now it's kind of all on the pro day, and we'll be there in March whenever they do schedule that. And that'll be a lot of eyes on Drake Stoops that day. So look forward to that. That should be, like Tom says, sometime in March. They've kind of moved all over the place. Sometimes it's early. Sometimes it's at the very end. I've had it during conference tournament week before. I've had it on opening day of baseball before. So all over the place. So we'll see where they shake it out this time, coming up here next month. All right. Shifting over to hardwood from the gridiron. Hoops, big win. Bedlam over the weekend. Tom and I were there at the LNC. It's a packed house. We've talked about this a number of times. I know I brought it up with Colin as well, in terms of over the last couple of years when the LNC kind of fills up and there's a lot of kind of emphasis on a game, it seems like the team plays worse. Like they don't rise to the occasion. It's happened a few times. And I wouldn't say they played especially great on Saturday, but they did enough to win the game. Had to have it. Oklahoma State's the worst team in the Big 12, and they're missing their best player. Bryce Thompson went down earlier in the year. Mike Boynton has owned Porter Moser, well documented. This was the time, if you're going to get that monkey off your back, it had to happen this time, and they did find a way to get the job done. 66-62. Tom, you and I were there. They had to have this game. Didn't really necessarily help their resume that much. In fact, I kind of hurt them in like net ranking and stuff like that. but a loss would hurt way more. They had to have this. They got the job done. They found a way to just kind of get through it and get the win.
Yeah, I mean, they, like you said, they absolutely needed that game. They needed it last week. They lost 3 of the last 4, including back-to-back at home. So to return home and you have a chance against BYU in a midweek game where, you have a chance to secure what is on paper your best win of the season, and you go out and do that convincingly, a 16-point win, and then you turn around and just scrap one out against your rival, a rival who's kind of been a pain in your side for the last few years since Porter Moser's been here. They overcame a lot in that game. 3 technical fouls, a flagrant. Sam Godwin fouled out from the bench.
Got tech from the bench. Of all people, too. Like, Sam Godwin's like the most mild-mannered guy on the team. I would love to know what he did to garner a tech from the bench.
Yeah, but, I mean, they just locked in defensively the final, 6 minutes of that game. And, they executed on both ends of the floor. They got points on 7 of their final 9 possessions, whether it was, Jalen Moore hitting a big shot in the corner, Latrey Darthur knocking down a 3-pointer from the other corner to, put Oklahoma ahead for good, and just guys hitting their free throws. Like, Javian McCollum did not have a great game. I think he was 1 of 6 from the floor, 1 of 5 from 3-point range, but he went 4 of 4 at the line in the final 30 seconds to help seal that game.
Yeah.
And then, guys like Rivaldo Suarez, like I mentioned with Trey Darthur, but Rivaldo Suarez has just been playing great basketball the last month. His last 8 games, he's averaging almost 11 points, shooting 60%, grabbing 5 rebounds, and he's got, I think, a combined 12 or 13 blocks and steals during that stretch. And one of those steals was on Javon Small to basically seal the game. I mean, he was trying to foul him. They didn't call the foul. Small tried to drive, and Rivaldo Suarez just poked that thing away from behind and gave Oklahoma the win that they needed, because they could not afford to lose that game, because on the resume it would have looked terrible. It would have been their first quadrant 3 loss. You don't want any bad losses on your resume, and they were able to avoid that. But also just looking at what's ahead these next 3 weeks for this team. 4 of their next 5 games are against teams that are basically top 15 in every metric. Whether it's Ken Pom, whether it's net, whether it's the AP poll. It is a grueling 3-week stretch with the only kind of reprieve in that, so to speak, a road trip to Stillwater to face this Oklahoma State team again in 2 weeks. So it is going to be a very difficult stretch. They needed those 2 wins, get a little bit of momentum. They're back in the AP poll. I still think they're very firmly in the NCAA tournament at this point, and even if they don't do particularly well during these next 3 weeks, I don't think it's going to hurt their slate too much, because I don't think they're going to be penalized for games that they weren't necessarily expected to win compared to what they've done overall this season. But they have a chance to stack some wins and really prove themselves these next few weeks.
Yeah, I love Rivaldo Suarez. I've been kind of bringing him up all the time. He's been so good off the bench. He's just doing all the hard work, and you can just see how badly he wants it. Porter Moser kind of talked about that yesterday. Just, this is it for him. His career is winding down. He doesn't have any more eligibility. This is the last go for him, and he wants to get back to the tournament. Or first time. Did he say nobody on the team's ever been to the tournament?
No one on this team ever been to the tournament.
Yeah, so he wants to get to the tournament, and he's laying it all out there. He is hitting the floor. He's doing all the hard, dirty work, kind of that cliche type of stuff. He always says the right thing in post game. He's been great for Oklahoma in the portal. I've been hard on Latrey Darthur, but he's been better. As of late, the last few games, he's hit some timely shots. He's kind of quieted some of that Caden Cooper noise, which was getting louder and louder. Haven't heard that as much the last few games because Darthur and Suarez have been so good. I mean, that if those guys play well, and Suarez has been pretty good, it's been good the whole Big 12 play, but if those guys play well, the argument for Caden Cooper to get in there gets minimized pretty quickly because you don't need another, wing guy to come in the game. So they needed that game really bad. And like you said, it was a wild scene when the techs started flying. 3 techs is a lot. Otega Owa, Jalen Moore, and Sam Godwin all got one. Jalen Moore is that's very predictable. He plays with a lot of energy. Otega Owa is kind of a sneaky trash talker out there. Sam Godwin on the bench the betting odds on that were very, very long. Because that's wild that he got. That was his 5th foul too. That was the end of his night from the bench. But big win. They really, really had to have that. And like you said, we get to do it again in a couple of weeks. Stillwater on the 24th. That should be a that should be very entertaining there at Gallagher-Iba. So look forward to that in a couple weeks. And now you go into a brutal week. A tough week is you're going to at Baylor tonight in Waco, Tuesday night. And then Kansas comes to LNC on Saturday. That's quite the back-to-back. It will be there in Norman on Saturday. Last time Kansas comes for who knows how long, probably forever, frankly. So look forward to that. It's going to be fun on Saturday. The other kind of storyline with men's hoops right now that's kind of been lingering. We haven't talked about it on the show. We haven't even really entertained it on the VIP message boards or anything just yet because it just never felt like it had that much legs. But it's kind of been floating out there. It's been in the ether. Has been the DePaul head coaching job is open. Porter Moser has been loosely connected to it. The Chicago connection is obvious, right? I mean, that's really the number one thing tying him to it would be if he wants to go back home and he would have the opportunity in another major conference there in the Big East. There is a lot of investment in hoops out there, even though that they stink. They're one of the worst teams in the country. They're 3-20 right now. I think they play UConn tonight or tomorrow too. Good luck with that. But there's been some loose connections that Porter Moser would maybe be interested in that job. So I'm going to lay – he was asked about this yesterday in practice. I'm going to put that in the pod right here in just a second. You can hear it if you're listening, obviously. And if you're on the YouTube channel, you get to watch it, kind of see the interaction here of whenever he got asked yesterday about the DePaul opening. Then you can judge for yourself. So I'm going to put it in right here.
Porter was around this time last year. The rumors about Notre Dame.
I don't even. Anytime I hear a question that starts out with last year, it makes me want to end this.
But now there's rumors, reports circulating about DePaul.
Don't even. Haven't talked to anybody. Not even thinking about anything. I'm just absolutely not even engaging into anything like that. 100%. So excited about where we're at with the team. This is everything we've tried to build for. Is being in this position and. Same comment as last year. All rumor mill fodder. Nothing true.
Okay, so you saw that. Tom, you and I were there. We're not even, a couple feet from him when he was answering this. It seemed genuine to me, right? I mean, he shot it down pretty definitively. He didn't leave a whole lot of wiggle room there. It doesn't make a lot of sense to jump to the DePaul gig. Doesn't sound like he's interested in it. Did you leave yesterday convinced? Because I was pretty convinced.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're ever going to slam the door. Ever since Nick Saban said, "I will not be the next head coach of Alabama," or whatever it was when he left the Dolphins, and then goes and becomes the head coach at Alabama. But I think it was very telling the way he handled that. The way he said same comment as last year. And then you go back and look at what he said last year. We said, I'm not interested. I have no interest. Oklahoma is home. The Sooners are home. I like what we're building here. And now he's actually seeing the fruits of those labors of that rebuild at Oklahoma. I mean, I think maybe if the team was, not having the kind of season it's having right now, if it was, more of the same of last year, maybe I think there would be more legs to it. But right now, it just doesn't make sense to leave a Big 12/SEC job for what is arguably one of the worst Power 6 basketball jobs in the country right now. Look, I know DePaul's in the Big East. I know Chicago is home to him. I know he is a devout Catholic, and that is a Catholic university, kind of the same situation as last year with Notre Dame. But DePaul's not as good as Notre Dame as a program right now.
No.
I just don't think the move makes much sense unless look, you're really tugging at the home, at the roots for him. And if something were to happen, I think it would be about, his family wanting to get back home, him really wanting to get back home. But I think right now he likes what they're doing, what they've been able to do with this team, and the opportunity to build upon it moving into the SEC and a new challenge in that league.
I think this would make more sense if, Porter Moser didn't like being in the big market, all the attention and things like that. But this is a guy that's been advocating for people to come out and support the team, advocating for more attention, advocating for more, just time out there with everybody. So if he was trying to go to a smaller situation and wanting to go back home and be less out of the limelight, the spotlight, things like that, then maybe it'd make more sense. But he doesn't seem like the guy that wants to be at the smaller situation. That's why he left Loyola Chicago the first time. I mean, just getting to Oklahoma, being at a bigger market, being at a program that he can truly build in with those top 5, top players, in the country and go after those guys. So it didn't really make any sense to me. So that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have no insight onto the DePaul hiring process and who they might want, but I think there are names that make more sense than Porter Moser does for them right now. I mean, you look at Drew Valentine, who replaced Porter at Loyola. I mean, he's a guy that maybe makes the move over to DePaul. You look at a Will Wade, who was disgraced at LSU after getting fired there, and is now at McNeese State and trying to work his way back up. He's a guy that might be interested in DePaul. Maybe a Bobby Hurley, something like that. I just don't know why a coach at Oklahoma in the Big 12, soon to be in the SEC, would make the move down to a school like DePaul right now. Though I will say one interesting little twist on it. Did you see who DePaul's interim head coach is right now?
Yeah, it's a Matt Brady.
Yep,
former assistant who left mysteriously at OU.
Yeah.
When was that? Was that this year? That feels like forever ago. Okay, it was last year. Okay, I can picture he left just like very strangely, like he just was all of a sudden he was gone, and Porter got asked about it. He did not want to talk about it. So I don't really know what happened there, to be quite honest. But that is kind of funny. It all comes together. But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, unless you're just extremely homesick, which I mean, he was in Chicago for a long time. Obviously, coached Loyola for a decade there. So as the head coach, so I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. He's put so much effort into building Oklahoma up. They are trending to be a tournament team. They're pretty close to securing that in the next couple of weeks, frankly. So yeah, it never made a ton of sense. But and even after yesterday, there's still a lot of Oklahoma fans that are still not going to totally. They're still thinking, even after watching the video, they're still feeling like that there's a chance he could jump. And OU fans are scarred in this area for obvious reasons that don't need to be rehashed. Coaches lying about their desire to stay and things like that. And I think that's where a lot of this comes from, because when you just boil it down, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Oklahoma's just a better job. And I'm going to say Oklahoma's a great job because it is hard to win here. And there's not a ton of investment. And Lloyd Noble Center's a dump. We talk about that a bunch of times. But it's a lot better job than DePaul. So we'll put a pin in that for now. But Porter Moser shot that down pretty definitively, and you can watch the full interview on the YouTube channel as well if you want to check that out.
And please, DePaul fans, please, we're not trying to say that DePaul is just a terrible place to be and things like that. We're just, you got to compare the schools in this situation. And that's where.
Well, I mean, hey, the Big East is not that far behind the Big 12, frankly.
That's what I'm saying. The Big East as a conference is pretty good. It's just the schools themselves.
And so to build that roster. Yeah. They're 3-20. Like I said, 3-20. To build that roster to be competitive in the Big East would be really hard. That's asking a lot. So yeah,
we're not disrespecting.
Really in it for the long haul.
Yeah, we're not disrespecting DePaul. We're just we have to lay it out there. It's the job.
Yeah. Sounds like James is disrespecting DePaul.
In case DePaul, put that on the clip that and put it out there on the socials. All right, women's hoops. James, is your account. I say the same thing every single show. They just keep winning. 8 in a row. They won at Hilton in Ames over the weekend. I mean, they're pretty close to a lock for the tournament, I would think. They're in first place in the Big 12 all alone still. I've been able to say that the last couple of shows. What can you say, man? They just I sound like a broken record. I say the same thing every show. They just it's amazing. I didn't get to watch the game on Saturday because it was at the exact same time as the men's game when I was there at the LNC. But I was checking the score, and it was like, there they go, about to win again. It's amazing. It's like clockwork right now.
Yeah, 8 in a row, man. So I mean, 11 of the last 12. I mean, it's just
that's like a month. Really, that's like a month solid of winning.
Like it's crazy what they've put together. They're just cohesive unit now. I mean, everything just makes sense for this team. They play well. They're well coached, as you said plenty of times. Even when the non-conference schedule was happening, and you're starting to see all of these, all of it work out. Skylar has been the best player on this team, as we talked about a lot. But then you get Alexi Keys and those players like that having their nights and playing well, and it's just been working really well for this team overall. I mean, it's not much you can say when you're winning like this. I mean, there's nothing to nitpick at it or anything like that. It's just like you're doing your job, so just keep going. I mean, that's where you're at this point. I mean, who would have thought I mean, after all they lost last year, they would still be in the driver's seat in the Big 12 conference. I mean, it's amazing what they've done.
Yeah, they only moved up one spot, which seems like they're a little underranked right now, considering they're in first place in the Big 12. They're behind like several other Big 12 teams. You know, they've beat a lot of them, and they're in first place. But they're number 23 in the AP poll. The men moved back in at 25. Only 5 schools have got ranked teams in both. It's South Carolina, UConn, Creighton, Baylor, and OU. Kind of cool. So we're a little spoiled on that front. Not a lot of schools get.
And we've been saying the teams have been like, you know, opposite ends each time.
Yeah, they both won at the same time.
They're both in, and okay, maybe they're pointing towards the right direction here.
Yeah, right. And they got some big games coming up. The women do. Don't they play Baylor as well? I'm pulling up their schedule right now.
Also, to point out that Iowa State game, that OU hasn't beat Iowa State in quite some time. So that's also that also was an accomplishment as well. Like
they got Baylor tomorrow at the LNC Wednesday night, Valentine's Day night. That's the top 25 matchup there as well. Baylor's 21, OU's 23. So both teams have got Baylor in top 25 games in the next 2 nights. So we'll get lots of OU versus Baylor basketball coverage on the site the next couple of days.
Baylor has a former Oklahoma Preps lady on their team as well. Not Scholar, but Dariana Littlepage Buggs was an amazing player for Class and SAS back in the day.
There you go. The comments.
Some look at it, yeah.
There you go. So there you go. They're playing well right now. Certainly training to get back to the tournament. And who knows? I mean, and it's really important. I've talked about this in the past. We haven't really brought up on this show because it just hasn't been necessary yet, but it's getting to that point. As a reminder, if you don't follow women's hoops that closely, the March Madness setup is different than the men. The first 2 rounds are at home. You get to host the first 2 rounds if you're a top 4 seed. Yep. So their regular season is more important in some ways down the stretch because you want to get in that top 16. If you're in the top 16, you get to host the first 2 rounds at home, which is, I mean, it goes without saying, it's a huge difference. Huge. So finishing the season strong, they'd be trying to do that anyway. But if you can get into that top 16 and get at a 4 seed or higher, you get the first 2 rounds at the LNC, which they did a couple years ago. So we'll see how they go. We got about a month left and still into Selection Sunday, but doing good things right now is Baranchek's team, certainly. So to wrap up here, this will just be me for a couple of minutes. The baseball season gets underway this week. We talked about last week. Softball got started. Shockingly, they won all their games. They got a couple close calls in there, I guess, but they won all their games. They're undefeated to start the year.
Can I just point out? Let me point out before you get to baseball. Cassidy Pickering, as a freshman, this is gonna be a problem for the next couple of years. This girl is really really good. Like, I mean, my goodness, to start the season with a grand slam, like that's crazy. Like, and she's the one that delivered it.
Was that her first at bat?
Yeah, first at bat at OU. It's just crazy. Like, and then she was voted to the all tournament team. For the entire of the Mexico trip. So I mean, like that was surprising. I can't wait to talk to Patty Gasso and them about that this afternoon and talk about what she's accomplished so far. I mean, she came out of nowhere.
There you go.
Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, you're good. No, there you go. So a great weekend for softball to start. Again, not shocking to say the least. They won. They went undefeated through the weekend. Now baseball gets to start this weekend. They're down in Arlington at Globe Life Field. I'm actually going to go down for the opener on Friday. They play Oregon Friday afternoon. I'm going to be there, so keep an eye on the site for coverage from boots on the ground in Arlington. I got to come back because we have Kansas coming to LNC on Saturday, so I'll only be there for the opener. But looking forward to it. If just a quick 60 seconds or less primer on the team. 2 years ago, they went to Omaha. They lost a lot, from going into last year. They had to replace like the whole lineup practically, the whole rotation, back in the bullpen. That is not the case this year. If you watch this team last year, it's going to get a lot of names you recognize. The entire outfield is back. Kendall Pettis, John Spikerman, Bryce Madron, Jackson Nicholas is back. Anthony McKenzie's back. Easton Carmichael is back. The back in the bullpen's got names, Carter Campbell, the headliner there, is kind of their key reliever that they use in all the high leverage spots. They went out and they added multiple big arms in the portal. So you're going to have to learn some new pitchers, but they really went hard in the starting pitcher market in the transfer portal. Expect to see some of those guys certainly this weekend. Brennan Gert from Texas Tech's a big one. Braden Davis, heard a lot of good things about him. So that was kind of a big emphasis, was adding arms, and they did that in a major way in the portal. And then the fun one is Jackson Willits, this true freshman, is going to start at shortstop, it sounds like. Reggie Willits' son, so he's no OU legacy, obviously. Fans have been excited about this kid for a while, and I've been asked a bunch of times, do you think Jackson Willits could be the starting shortstop right away as a freshman? I've always kind of said the same thing, like, probably. Like, he's good enough to. I mean, I've seen him play. He's a switch hitter. He's a great fielder. I mean, he doesn't look like a freshman. And Skip Johnson said last week at Media Day that he is the leader in the clubhouse to start at shortstop on opening day, which is pretty cool as a true freshman. So he's a star in the making, and they got a lot to be excited about. They should be a really good team. That's the bottom line. They should be a good team. Made the tournament last year in what was supposed to be kind of a rebuilding year, and they brought close to everyone back, especially in the lineup. A lot to be excited about. They're going to be a good team. So I look forward to watching this week, and hopefully people join along for the coverage all season long. I'm excited. So
I got to see Jackson play a couple of times,
There
a
you
bunch
go.
of times actually, because of they were always in the state tournament, in the state title game and things like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they play all the time, and so I was always there covering both because they play twice, throughout the school year, because they don't play football, so you can play 2 baseball seasons. So they were one of the schools that play both, and got to see him a lot. I mean, so he's really good. I mean, he was incredible back then. We saw him coming up like freshman and sophomore years. We're like, man, this kid's gonna be really good. So
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with him. Yes, he could definitely start on this team.
It's funny because I was in Omaha 2 years ago for that run, and they would have open practices, and he would be out there, because obviously his dad's a coach on the team, Reggie Willits, and he would take BP with the team and stuff, and it was like, man, get the kid a uniform. I mean, he's only a junior in high school at that time.
Yeah,
and it's fun. It's just a fun storyline to have a true freshman with the name that he does. It's like I said, switch hitter. I mean, he's got a lot going for him, and it's in college baseball. You have to stay 3 years, so he's going to have a chance to grow, and fans are going to get a chance to really know him and watch him kind of blossom into a star potentially, which is cool. So excited to see that. And his younger brother, Eli Willits, is expected to be even better. Now the fear there is that he might not ever make it to OU because he might get drafted, and then that's that. But there's more down the pike. The Willits family is producing lots of talent. So
now, do you have
this week.
You don't say 3 years if you go to junior college, right? Isn't that the rule? I can't remember.
If you go to JUCO, it's just 3 years. Yeah, I think it's 3 years. Just
3
out
years.
of. If you play 2 at JUCO, you only have to play 1 at OU, presumably.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it'd be cool. I'm excited to get down there, see some baseball. I love baseball, and opening day is coming up. I want to have a season preview on the site as well tomorrow. Is the plan there? So keep an eye out for that for Valentine's Day baseball fans to get excited about the team. I think that's it. Be back on Thursday with Colin, do some recruiting news, stuff like that. Also, get some thoughts on the Baylor basketball game tonight at the LNC. Gentlemen, have a good week, rest of your week, Valentine's Day, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next week. For Tom Green, James C. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you guys next time on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.